Hey everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're new to my channel, my name is Melissa and I'm a nursing student. So now to get started with today's video, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about the 7 deadly sins of nursing school. So this is everything that you should not be doing when you are in nursing school if you want to be successful, pass your classes, and pass the Nclex. In general, you want to go ahead and stay away from all 7 of these items. So the first sin that I'm going to go over, or the first thing that you should not be doing in nursing school, is I think a pretty obvious one. I get a lot of questions on my videos, and a lot of the time people will ask me if I have any tips on how to succeed in nursing school, any tips on how to pass classes. In all of my tips, every single one, the most important one that I always give is do not procrastinate. So procrastination is the first deadly sin of nursing school. You do not want to procrastinate because you do not want to get behind on your work. Once you get behind on your work in nursing school, especially when you get to the actual nursing classes in nursing school, it becomes very difficult to catch up and get back to speed. So the best thing to do is to stay on top of your work and to not get behind in the first place. In nursing school, and especially, like I said, once you get to your actual nursing classes, so like pathophysiology, adult health, med-surg, once you get to those nursing classes, they all build off of each other. So each class builds off of each other, each course builds off of each other, and honestly, each week builds off of the week before it. So if you get behind, it's not like you can just kind of pick up with where you are in the class. You have to go back to where you got behind, learn that material, understand that material, while you're still learning new things in the class. So it becomes very difficult to catch up. My main advice would just be don't get behind on your work and do not procrastinate. Okay, so now the second deadly sin of nursing school is not coming to your lecture prepared or not preparing for a lecture beforehand. You should not be going into your lecture having absolutely no idea what topics you're going to be discussing that day. Even if you do not spend hours reading through all of the PowerPoints or reading the chapter ahead of time, which you really should be, but I know life happens. To be honest, I most of the time do not read like all of the chapters I'm supposed to read before going into lecture, but you should at least have a baseline understanding of what the heck you're going to be talking about in class and maybe some main bullet points. So if you are somebody who's crunched for time, as some of you guys know, I work full time and I have other obligations in addition to nursing school. So sometimes I stay on top of everything and I prepare for lecture fully before entering lecture. Other times, if I'm crunched for time, I will look at the syllabus, I'll look at the topics that we're discussing, and I may either skim through like the headings of my book, I may look at some definitions in my book, or if I don't open up the book, I'll skim through my professor's PowerPoints if they're nice enough to upload it ahead of time. Or if I don't even have time to do that, literally on my way to class, like before I get to class, I will look up the main topics that we're going to be going over. And then on my way to class, I will pull up either YouTube or Simple Nursing in the car while I'm driving, just so that I can listen to somebody giving a lecture on the topic. But at the very least, you should be knowing exactly what you're going to be talking about in lecture and what you're going to be learning. If you come to lecture prepared, if you are somebody who is organized or you have enough time to fully prepare for a lecture before it happens, and in my opinion, fully preparing means that you read through all of the PowerPoints or the book chapters and you have listened to lectures on the topic that you're going to be learning about before you get into the classroom. That's what I mean by going to lecture fully prepared. Whenever I go to lecture fully prepared, once I'm in class, one, it's just a review of what I've already taught myself. And two, I already go into the class knowing what my weak areas are, what portion of the lecture I need to make sure I pay extra attention to. If I have questions or things I don't understand while the professor's going over it, I can raise my hand and ask questions if it's appropriate, or I can stay after class and ask questions. It's better for your learning and for retention to prepare for lecture before you get there. But like I mentioned before, if you cannot do that, at least do not go into lecture completely clueless. Now, the third deadly sin of nursing school that you should never, ever do is missing assignments. You should always be turning in your assignments. This list is, I guess, not in order of importance because this would probably be number 1 at the list. You do not want to be missing turning in assignments. And I'm saying this because if you ever fail a class, or if you're ever on the borderline of failing a class, you don't want to be the thing that throws you over to be the fact that you missed an assignment that would have been an easy A. In general, in nursing school, at least at my school and at least for me, because everybody's different, I know everyone's different, assignments are typically an easy A. They're not like exams. I'm really not the best test taker. And with the test, you have to kind of be in a very sterile environment. Everything has to be quiet. You're either being watched by a computer or by your professor. You're timed. It's stressful. It's just a really stressful environment. I don't typically do well, or I don't do as well on exams depending on the class, or on quizzes depending on the class. But when it comes to homework assignments, you're able to take them home. You usually have at least a night to do them, if not a full week. Most assignments are due at the end of the week at Chamberlain at my school. So you have a substantial amount of time to do them. You can do them at home, in a library, whatever environment you are comfortable doing them in. You have your notes, so you can use your lecture notes, your professor's PowerPoint, you can use your book, you can use Google, you can use research, you can use Simple Nursing, you can use YouTube. You literally have everything at your disposal to do well on an assignment. And I understand if you have a difficult professor, maybe your assignments are not always an easy A. Maybe sometimes you'll get a B or even a C. But to me, a C is better than not turning in the assignment at all. So throughout my time at Chamberlain, I finished 2 years and I'm now in my 3rd year at Chamberlain. I have never missed a single assignment. Even if I turn the assignment in a minute before it's due, even if it's like crappy work that I've done, it's better to turn in an assignment crappily or not your best than to just not turn it in at all, because missing one assignment that could have been an A or a B could be the difference between you passing a course or you failing a course. So now the 4th deadly sin of nursing school is not making the most or not getting the most out of clinical. So I know that in clinicals we're supposed to be, I know that the design of clinicals is that we're supposed to be in the hospital getting hands-on experience, like serving as pre-nurses, learning a whole bunch of stuff. Unfortunately, to be completely honest, how much you learn in clinical and how much you get out of clinical can be dependent on so many different factors, and your experience in clinical can be dependent on so many different factors. One is your personality and just who you are and how outgoing you are and how proactive you are. But even if you are super proactive, super ready to get in and get dirty, it also depends on which professor you have, whether or not they allow you to do certain things at clinical, just depending on how comfortable they are, your school's policy. It depends on the clinical site that you're at, and it even can depend on what type of nurses and staff members are at your clinical site. Because unfortunately, if you are at a clinical site where there are nurses that do not love having students there, they may not allow you to be super hands-on. If you have a clinical instructor that is either super new or just kind of really weary and kind of nervous about their license, then you also may not be able to do a lot of hands-on stuff. And then of course, you should always be following your school's policy on what you are allowed to do in the clinical site and what you are not allowed to do in the clinical site. You should never do anything that you are not allowed to do. You should be administering medication under supervision, of course. You really should be learning how to give patient education, learning how to delegate. You really should be doing more hands-on skills and applying what you're learning in the didactic portion of your class into your clinical. And that is what I mean by make the most out of clinical. This is your chance to get your hands dirty, literally and metaphorically. This is your chance to really see what it's like to be a nurse. This is your chance to see what specialty you might want to go into. This is your chance to actually get to palpate patients and feel what certain illnesses feel like, smell what certain illnesses smell like, or auscultate and hear different lung sounds and cardiac sounds. You really should be making the most out of clinical and getting as much as you can out of clinical. So if you have a clinical instructor that, is very hands-on and is willing to teach, you should learn from them. If you're lucky enough to get a nurse or even a CNA, because some CNAs are amazing, but if you're lucky enough to have a staff member at your clinical that is willing to really take you underneath their wing, every medication that they're giving, they're explaining to you why they're giving it. They're letting you they're letting you really just get your hands dirty and feel what it's like to be a nurse. You should be making the most out of it. You should not be in a corner somewhere not talking. You should never be on your phone texting. You should always be present, and any opportunity that you have to learn in the clinical site, you should be taking it. So now the next deadly sin is very important. All of these deadly sins are important. That's why I'm calling them the deadly sins. But the fifth deadly sin of nursing school is allowing yourself to become out of compliance. Now, if you attend Chamberlain, I'm not sure if other schools use this, but we have it's from a third party, but it's like this database that tracks your compliance for nursing school. And so if you become out of compliance, I believe you're still able to go to I believe you're still able to go to lecture, but you cannot go to clinical. So we have a list, I think it's like a list of 20 something things that we need to stay in compliance for. I believe once a year, once every other year, we have to do like OSHA training, which is like safety and employee safety and things like that. We have to do HIPAA training and take a quiz. And so that's patient privacy and patient rights. We have to make sure that we're CPR certified and we stay on top of that. I believe that's every 3 years. We have to make sure that we're up to date on our COVID vaccine, on all of our vaccines. Our flu shot, we have to get that annually. We have to have proof of insurance, whether you have insurance from like your job or your parents, or whether you have insurance through the school, because that is an option. So there are all of these things. There's a whole list of things that you have to get into compliance for when you first start school. And it's not just a one and done thing. Just like COVID, I think you have to do that every other year, every year now. The flu, you have to do that every single year. So there are certain things where you're only going to need to do them once at admission before you start clinicals. And so you're going to get that out of the way when you first start the program, and you don't have to worry about it again until after graduation. You'll just upload it and you never have to worry about it again. Then there are other things that either you have to get renewed every year. There are other things you have to get renewed every other year. So it is easy to fall out of compliance. You fall out of compliance if any of the number of different items fall out of compliance. So if you have to get your flu shot by October 1st that year, the second that it hits October 2nd, there's like a big red banner in your account that says that you're out of compliance. And if you're out of compliance, you definitely cannot attend clinical. So you will fail whatever class you're in or you're going to. And I believe that you also can't register for classes. If you're out of financial compliance, you cannot register for classes. Like if you're late on your bill and there's a hold on your account and registration pops open, you cannot register for classes until you resolve that. And so I'm not sure if that's the same for clinical compliance, but I guess it's kind of an overarching thing. Try to stay in compliance, even in financial compliance, because if you fall out of compliance, you can't register for classes. And then if you fall out of compliance for clinical, you cannot attend clinical. And so that can put you behind to graduate. That can make you fail a course. And I believe for certain items in Complio, the software that we use for Chamberlain to stay in compliance, I believe you have 30 days. So there's certain things, if it expires. So like, for example, my CPR certification expired. I became CPR certified before starting nursing school. I believe it was around the time I entered school. And my job offered CPR classes because I worked in an inpatient healthcare facility. So everybody could come and take a CPR class for free. Our job paid for it. They sponsored it. There was like a time period of a week where we just had to fill out a time, like sign up for a time. We went, we got CPR certified. And so I uploaded that to Complio before I started at Chamberlain. So that was a few years ago at this point. So it expired earlier this month. And so I got a warning that I was out of compliance, and at least for CPR, it gave me 30 days to get back into compliance. So I was scrambling to find a CPR class. It's not as easy because you have to go in person, and I work full-time during the day, and then on the weekends I'm at clinical. So I had to find a time to carve out 3 hours and go in person to take the CPR class. I ended up taking it on Easter Sunday because that was the one day that I had available this month to carve out time to go take it. So my family meets for dinner on Easter, but Sunday morning of Easter, I had to skip church. I normally go to church. My husband ended up taking the class with me, so we made it kind of like a little date, which how lame is that to make a CPR class a date? But the point is, I was so desperate to get back in compliance that I had to use my day off one of my Christian holidays, instead of going to church and spending time with my family that morning, I had to go take a CPR class just so I could get into compliance. The best thing you can do is to never allow yourself to get out of compliance. That way you're never scrambling. At least with Complio, they give you notice. So I believe they give you like 3 months in advance or something. They'll have a list when you first log in saying that you're about to, or these items are about to expire. And so they let you know when things are about to expire. So the second you see that something is about to expire, especially if it's something like a CPR class or something you need to go to the doctor to get that'll take a lot of time, make sure that the second you get a warning that it's about to expire, make sure you go ahead and get that taken care of so that you're not scrambling at the last minute to make a doctor's appointment or make an appointment to get a vaccine or take a class or anything like that. So the 6th cardinal sin in nursing school is not making friends. I know that may sound a bit silly or arbitrary, but making friends in nursing school is really important for a number of different reasons. I don't care if you are antisocial, I don't care if you are a loner, I don't care if you're shy or just introverted, I don't care if you're busy and you just have a lot going on outside of school. You should try to make friends. You don't need to make best friends. You don't need to be going to people's houses outside of class or going to parties or anything like that together, but you really should have friends in your classes where you have their numbers, they have your numbers, and whether you're part of group text messages in your clinical site, but you really should make friends and make connections in nursing school. And for one thing, it'll help you outside of nursing school. Once you're in the real world, it's always good to network and have connections. You never know who in the future is going to be working at a job with you, and it'll be nice to go on a job site and see a familiar face and see somebody from your cohort that you are cool with and that you're friendly with. You also never know who's going to be a hiring manager in the future. You want to make sure that people in your cohort know you and that you have made great connections. But aside from that, once you're actually in nursing school, I cannot tell you the number of times that having a classmate's number and feeling comfortable enough to text them and reach out to them has saved my butt. If you are running late for class, if you have an emergency that's last minute, if you are running late for class, if you have a last minute emergency or something like that and you try reaching out to your professor and you cannot reach them, you can always reach out to a friend and be like, hey, can you please tell the professor I'm going to be like 5 minutes late? Or could you please tell the professor I'm not going to be there today, but I sent them an email. There have been times where I literally completely forgot that an assignment was due, or I overlooked an assignment for one reason or another. I was about to miss the due date, and I've had a friend from class text me to be like, hey, did you do this assignment yet? I'm having trouble with it. And that reminded me, oh shoot, I need to do this assignment. There have been times where I've had questions on an assignment and the professor wasn't super clear, and it was just easier for me to reach out to my friend. There have been times when class has been canceled and I didn't get an alert on my phone, and instead of checking my emails before class, because I work full time, so most days I don't check my email and I don't have it on my phone, so I have to kind of go out of my way on the computer to check my email. There have been multiple times where a notification was sent out and I didn't get it because I didn't have a chance to check my email before leaving for class, and literally on my way out, a classmate or a friend from school texted me to be like, hey, we have no class tonight, you know? And of course, I always pay it forward. If I see that we don't have class or a last minute announcement or something, I will send like a mass text message to all my friends in nursing school or people in my cohort. But it's just really good to make friends and have a connection. To be completely honest, when I first started nursing school, I didn't want to make friends. Not that I wanted to be standoffish, but like my mindset was, I have my friends from middle school, I have my friends from high school, I have my friends from undergrad, I have my network and connections from my master's program, I'm married. I was just kind of like, look, I'm in my late 20s, I already have my friend group, I have my man, I have my life. I'm just gonna go to class, mind my business, and come home. I'm not looking for any social whatever. But over time, as you're seeing the same faces in your cohort, you know, week after week taking classes together, as you're going to clinical especially, you get to know people really, really well in clinical, because some clinical groups that I've been in have only been like 3 people. So you really just talk to people, and it's just kind of inevitable that you're going to form bonds and relationships and friendships with people. And I think that that's a good thing. And if it's not happening for you naturally at first, it will definitely start happening once you join your nursing classes. So my advice is to not be standoffish and just kind of go with it and enjoy it, make friends. It's also really nice to have people to commiserate with and bond with, because nobody really knows what you're going through if they're not in your cohort. Even nurses who went through nursing school at one point, they're not going to nursing school at your school, in your program, having the same professors as you at the exact same time that you are doing it. So the only people that can really relate to your experience fully are the people that are in your cohort. And it's just nice to know that you're not alone. And it's definitely, we lift each other up. And so I feel like it's good to be a part of that community and to be fully a part of that community. Don't just go to class when class starts, leave right when class ends. Go to clinical, not mingle with people and be on your phone until clinical starts. And then when you're on a break at clinical, you're also on your phone. Try to engage, get to know people, and make friends. So now we have made it to the final deadliest sin of nursing school. Although this is the final on my list, it is definitely not the least important. And so the 7th deadliest sin of nursing school is to not review material from previous classes. So now, if I'm going to be real with you guys, the purpose of nursing school, aside from, teaching you how to be a nurse and how to care for patients in different healthcare settings, but the purpose of nursing school, unlike so many other majors in college, it is not to pass each class. Nursing school is really to prep you to take the Nclex. That is the big goal. That's the major goal. Yes, you need to pass exams, you need to pass homework assignments, you need to pass each class, but that's more so, each class is kind of like a hurdle that you need to jump over in order to get to the main event. And so nursing school, all of the EDAPT assignments that we're doing, what we're learning in our lectures, the ATI assignments, all of the now standardized CMSs that we need to take, all of that is to prepare us for the Nclex. So there are certain majors, of course, where you can take a class, and the second that you're done with that class, all of that material can just exit your mind to make space for your next class. Nursing school is not one of those majors. Nursing school, as I mentioned when I was talking about procrastination, every single week builds off of the week before it. Every single course builds off of the course before it. You really do need to not just be learning information to pass tests and to pass classes. You need to be retaining this information so that not only can you know it in the field, but you cannot get to the field if you do not pass the Nclex. All of this, and I cannot stress this enough, I keep saying this in so many different ways, what you're learning in school, you need to be constantly reviewing it so that when you get to the end of your program, you can pass your Nclex, God willing, on the first try. And so those are my 7 deadly sins of nursing school. If you made it to the end of this video and you liked it, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for all the support that I've received recently, and I will see you guys in the next video.